All right, folks, so I'm going to go over numbers 4, 5, and the explained example right after 4 and 5 for lesson 31-1. It's solving quadratics by factoring or graphing. So you've kind of read through the problem at this point. You've got 3 kids that are building a trebuchet, all right, which is this kind of like medieval looking thing that used to launch, you know, like buckets of hot oil and stuff like that on enemies, you know, good times. Anyway, here's a graph of their projectile path. So you've looked through this already. We've got on the x-axis, we have the distance from launch, and it's measured in meters. On the y-axis, we have the height of the projectile, and that's also in meters. So we've already gone over numbers 1 through 3, and we found that the 2 x-intercepts are right here at 0 and then at 16. So 0 means that this is where the projectile was at the beginning of the launch. Okay, so it was on the ground, all right? And then when it landed on the ground again, so, you know, here's the path of the projectile. When it landed on the ground again, it was 16 meters from the launch point. Okay, so that's what that graph is telling us. It also has a vertex up here, which tells us the maximum height. Okay, the maximum height of the projectile, which in this case was what, 8 meters. All right, but we're going to flip over to numbers 4 and 5. Okay, it tells us to determine how far the ball lands from the launching point. You can solve the equation -1/8 x squared plus 2x is equal to 0 because the height y equals 0. Okay, so it tells us to verify that x is equal to 0 and x is equal to 16 are solutions to the equation, right? So we do that by plugging those into the function. All right, we are literally going to plug those numbers into the function and see if they make true statements. All right, if they make true statements, then we know yes, those are the solutions to the function. So first I'm trying f of 0. This one should be very simple, all right, because 0 squared is 0. 0 times -1/8 is 0, plus 2 times 0 is 0. So I get an ordered pair of 0, 0. Here's my x value, here's my y. So yes, okay, and right here I also I've got a 0 here. So if I'm making a true statement, then yes, I know that that solution is correct. All right, so then we're going to check when x is equal to 16. All right, so we can say f of 16 is equal to, we'll do -1/8 times 16 squared plus 2 times 16. All right, so we'll do 16 squared, off the top of my head. What is 16 squared? Hang on. 16 times 16, 2. So that is 256. Okay, and then plus, and I'm going to go ahead and multiply 2 times 16 as well, which gives us 32. So now I need to multiply -1/8 times 256. So y'all bear with me. I should have had my calculator ready. All right, so that's going to give us -32 plus 32, which equals what? 0. All right, so again, here's my ordered pair, right? So 16 is equal, oops, not equal to, silly me. 16 is my x value, 0 is my y value. So I plugged in those two values and I got the 2 ordered pairs that we were looking for to verify that those were correct. Okay, so that's how you can verify. Plug back in your x values and solve for your y values. Okay. All right. Number 5 is saying, without the graph, could you have determined these solutions? You could. It would take a while because you essentially are just doing guess and check. So I could probably guess x of 0, like of an x value of 0, because it's pretty straightforward. I can, you know, I probably launched from the ground. But that's not always the case. Maybe I put it on a platform or something before we launched it. It would be kind of difficult to guess 16 as an answer choice without a graph, without actually seeing it. So guess and check is an option, but it takes forever. Okay, so we're gonna do factoring, folks. We're gonna go back to factoring that we learned a couple of weeks ago. All right. So I'm going to take you through example A and show you how we could have used factoring to figure out the x values of the function. All right. So I'm actually going to look. I'm factoring one that it's got a fraction in it. OMG. Here we go. 2x is equal to 0. All right. Let's think about what we've learned about factoring. The very first thing that I should look for is a greatest common factor. All right, so do we have a greatest common factor here? We do. Both of our terms have at least one x in them. So we can factor out an x. So I'm going to pull out an x. What would be left? We would have negative 1/8. If this was x squared and I pulled out an x, then I have just one x left. Plus, I've got a 2x here. If I pulled out the x, then I'm left with a 2. And then we're setting this equal to 0. Okay, now I need you to essentially think about the x and then what's in parentheses here as like two separate problems. All right, so we're gonna split these out. All right, so this x right here, I'm gonna bring it down and I'm gonna set it equal to 0. All right, so I literally have an answer of x is equal to 0. Over here, I'm gonna take what's in the parentheses. Okay, so I brought down that x. I'm gonna take what's in parentheses here, this negative 1/8 x plus 2, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. Okay, you remember how our function had two different places where that projectile was on the ground. It was at 0 and it was at 16. Well, look, I already have one of my answers. X is equal to 0. That's one of my solutions. Okay, I bet you when we solve this one, we're going to get something like 16. Let's give it a try. So let's solve this equation for x. So we're going to subtract 2 on both sides. So we get negative 1/8 x is equal to 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Okay, now right here I've got to get rid of the negative 1/8 in front of the x. I can either divide by negative 1/8 or I can multiply by, you guessed it, the reciprocal. Well, what's the reciprocal of negative 1/8? It is negative 8. So I'm going to multiply by negative 8 on both sides. That's going to cancel out my fraction right here, and I get x is equal to 16. And look at that. Here are the two places where that projectile hit the ground. I can't hear it for sure, but I'm hearing, I think I'm hearing gasps like, oh, that's so amazing, because it is. Okay, now I need y'all to work numbers, letters A through B on the Try These A. Y'all give these a shot and then watch the video and see what you can do. Remember to factor out the GCF.